It's New Year's Eve 2014, and I'm preparing for dinner tomorrow because I'll be smoking a pork shoulder butt on my Weber Smokey Mountain. So I'll be getting up around 6 o'clock in the morning, getting on the smoker by 7, and letting it smoke for 8 or 9 hours. So tonight I wanted to go over the rub recipe with you and show you what I had in mind. I'm going for a sweet-salty combination, and the ingredient list on this one is pretty simple. We're going to use black pepper, coarse sea salt, chopped onion, garlic powder, paprika, and brown sugar. And I'll be using what I like to consider a secret ingredient for my binder. Some folks like to coat pork with olive oil or leave it wet with water after washing it to get the dry rub to bind to the meat. But for this particular recipe, I'm going to use blue agave syrup. Very nice, very sweet, and makes a terrific binder on the meat to go with the brown sugar. So the rub here, I think, has a really nice reddish brown coloring to it. A really nice balance between the salt and the sugar, and some nice aromatics and flavorings from the onion and the garlic particularly. So we'll get that on the meat in the morning at around 6, get the smoker prepared, and get it on by 7. See you early in the morning. Good morning, it's New Year's Day, January 1st, 2015, and it's about 6:30 in the morning, 6:23 on my clock. As promised, I've been up at 6 o'clock getting the fire and the smoker ready for the big pork shoulder smoke today. I had to change plans a little bit because, just like the meteorologists promised, we are getting winter weather here, and in central Texas that means it's raining and below 40 degrees. So that's what we're facing. And I moved the smoker from out back where it was on the patio to under the cover of the front porch, so it doesn't get rained on, and hopefully it doesn't adversely affect the cooking temperatures too much. I'm tired, it's early, I've been moving heavy things and standing in the rain for a little while, so we're going to do all this in one giant take. You're going to get what I give you. Woo! Alright, so let's begin. I have the pork shoulders, coming up to room temperature. That saves about 40 degrees on the cook time, where if you take it out of the refrigerator cold, it's about 37 degrees, room temperature being about 70, 72 here in my house, means that the smoker's going to have to do work to move that 40 plus degrees. I warm it up ahead of time, reduces the cook time. Because it takes a while when you're smoking at 250, 275 to move every degree. So we've got that working for us, and we'll take it out of the oven where I had it just so the cats don't get it. It's not cooking. And we'll do some preparation. Come on over. There's our pork shoulders. 2 always come in a package when you buy at the supermarket like I did. I got these at Costco. And you normally, I think, will buy them bone in. These are boned already, so the bone's removed. As a result, there's a cut that the butcher made about halfway through the meat, about halfway along. So you can actually lift up this whole flap on both of these and open up the shoulder. I bound them in twine as a result because I wanted a more even cook. So I was worried that where this has been halved already, we're going to have a very different cook time on the portion that's been cut versus the portion that hasn't. So I bound them up with twine. No big deal. Okay. So first things first, we're going to get a binder on these guys. They've already been washed. And as I talked about yesterday, I'm going to use the blue agave for this. Start on the bottom side and work our way around and to the top side, which is the side with the fat. If you notice, this side has much less fat than the top side. The top side being called the fat cap, where the fat resides. So we'll get our binder all over that. This is the fat cap here. And there's different philosophies regarding how this goes on the smoker. Some people swear that you got to put it fat side up. Others swear you put it fat side down. And still other people say it doesn't matter. It's really whatever you prefer if you have one method that works for you over another. And yes, either side will call the other wrong when it comes to fat up or fat down. Some people flip it halfway through because they can't make up their minds. So now that our agave binder is on here, we're going to apply the rub, and this will be applied liberally. Pork's a big piece of meat, the shoulder is, and I don't like to spare the seasonings anyway. I know this guy can take anything that I throw at it, so we're going to throw it all at it. All around on the sides. We're going to eat this whole thing, so we got to get the rub on everything we're going to eat. Which is the whole thing. Some people use a shaker bottle. I use my hands because that's the way God meant it to be. If He didn't want me to use my hands, He wouldn't have given it to me, right? And there we have 2 rubbed pork shoulders. Next is to check on the fire. It may be obvious by now that I am in the running for worst YouTube video lighting ever. I'm outside on my front porch where the lighting is much worse than it is out back with the smoker because of the weather. Let's show you what we got going on here. Meat's inside. There it is on the grate. I've got my probe in the meat, which goes to my remote thermometer here. And we're going to get the internal temperature between 250 and 275. 275 being the goal. We're going to cook this all day, but we don't want it to take forever. As long as it's under 300, we're good. Pork is pretty forgiving, especially with a big cut of meat like the shoulder is. So we'll keep it at 275. It hits 300, no big deal, but that's what our goal is anyway. So we're going to open up our air intakes on the bottom and get this fella heated up as quickly as we can and get up to 275. In the meantime, we're going to set our thermometer for a temperature of 200 and have this guy start doing a countdown. Or count up. And we wait for the smoker to come up to temperature and for time and heat to do its thing with our pork shoulders. I'm not going to lift this lid again until that thermometer reads 200. The meat's on the smoker. We have our temperature probe stuck in the meat and the remote thermometer is sitting on a table next to the smoker. We're not going to look at this again for another 8 or 9 hours. We're going to go by temperature on this. Some people go by look. We're going to go by temperature. We know that the meat's done and ready to go when it hits 195 to 200. So we're going to shoot for 200. Some people will go a little bit over 200, 203. I've heard 205. I've read some places do that. Pork is a forgiving meat, especially when it's a large piece like a shoulder butt. So the temperature's not as critical as if it were, say, a nice piece of beef. So our target temperature is 200 degrees. Some folks like to check on the meat periodically by lifting the lid. I don't like to do that because every time you lift the lid, you add about 15 to 20 minutes of cook time. by letting the heat escape. So we're going to leave everything as it is. Some folks also like to spritz the meat or baste it periodically. You can do that. It retains the moisture in the meat better. And some folks like to use a fruit-based liquid like apple cider or apple cider vinegar or water in some cases, but we're not going to do that. We're not going to foil it like some people like to do. I've seen recipes where people foil for the last hour or the last 3 hours. I don't know of a reason to do that right now. There's so many different ways that you can smoke meat and so many different techniques that it's highly personal and subjective. So we're not gonna go with those methods. I read other places that said, you know, while you're doing your first few, don't mess with it. Just leave it be and come back when it's done. So that's what we're gonna do. We will look at the temperature periodically throughout the cook, so I'll keep you updated. It's just past 10 o'clock, and if my basic math skills serve me well, that means we've been smoking the meat now for 3 hours, or just over 3 hours. And we've reached a predictable point in the process where the evaporative cooling of the meat achieves an equilibrium with the meat temperature. And we've reached a phenomenon called the stall. And that's where your meat's going to maintain a constant temperature of around 150 for a few hours until the evaporative process runs its course and the internal temperature of the meat increases again. Take a look at this graphic from AmazingRibs.com and also check out his site because he's got some fantastic information there for a lot of things. He gets real scientific, breaks things down really well for you, and he's got a terrific study on the stall. Good article, worth your time to read it. But you can see in the graphic how at the 3 hour mark, we're maintaining a temperature of around 150 for a few hours. And then you can see at the tail end of it, the meat temperature increases again. So that's where we are. Our smoker's running at 225 and the internal meat temperature is at 152. So everything's right where we want it to be and right where we expect it to be. And we'll keep checking back. All right, let's do a little status check. It's 2:45, which means that we've been smoking now for 8 hours. The meat temperature is 192. Excellent. The smoker temperature is at 225. Very good. So I would expect that everything will be done within an hour, which will be just in time for folks to arrive for New Year's dinner. Let me show you what we have planned for the rest of the menu and see how we're going to fill out the whole meal. We will be making macaroni and cheese and cornbread. And I've already laid out the ingredients for the cornbread. And we've got macaroni soaking. And I soak it in cold tap water instead of boiling it because the macaroni comes out less soggy when you do it this way. And we got our pots and pans ready to go. Got our skillets standing by. So as soon as folks arrive, we will be able to rock and roll. So I would expect that we'll get everything rolling by 4 o'clock. And then we'll have a nice big family sit down. So when we do the uncovering of the pork, I'll bring you in on that, and you can see what we got going there. Because once I take it off the smoker, I'm going to double wrap it in foil and then put it in a couple of coolers because you have to let it rest for 30 to 60 minutes. Let the juices get resorbed into the meat because the meat is still on the heat, which means the muscle tissues are still contracting and still pushing out that moisture. So by letting it rest for a while, we allow that to loosen up, allow the meat to get resorbed back into, allow the juices to get resorbed back into the meat, and it comes out much, much juicier that way. And it retains its juiciness for a lot longer, otherwise it would dry out pretty quick. We're ready to take the shoulders off the smoker. I've got tin foil ready to go, so we're going to double wrap them and load them up into some coolers. The family's arriving right now, which means the dogs are going to go nuts. So you're going to hear some commotion. All right, but here we go. I haven't seen these in the last 9 hours. They look really, really good. They got a nice bark on them. Perfect kind of consistency. Take the probe out. Let's see if we can do this without wrecking things. And there go the dogs. First one's off. And into the cooler it goes. And so it's ready to go. We're going to let these rest for 30 to 60 minutes, and then we'll show you what it's like when they come out. All right, well, the family's here. We got cornbread waiting. There's our macaroni and cheese. Texas toast for pulled pork sandwiches. And now we'll do the pork shoulder. All right, we're going to unwrap the pork shoulder. Sitting in the cooler for an hour or so. That could not look any better. Nice black bark on it. Got a great brisket-like texture to it. That's exactly what we want. Let's cut the twine and see what we got.
This is normal. The Franklin barbecue stuff is, Franklin's good. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Come on. Did I get you guys anything to drink? You get, all right, and I got more sodas here. What's that?
Water, some, oh, those are ginger cookies.
So that's looking pretty good. I think a chunk or two might be a little overdone based on the cut that was done previously. This part right here looks a little dry to me.
Bubble water too. It's just plain bubble water.
The flavor's really good.
Oh.
It's in here.
Bark is great. Some nice burnt ends there. And we'll get to eating. So we wound up tonight with one uneaten pork shoulder, which is fine because it's going to make a terrific set of sandwiches and meals later on down the line. It preserves really well. We're going to break it up and freeze it. So I wanted to show you what it looks like now. It's still been sitting in the foil wrap in the cooler for the last 6 hours from when it first came off the smoker. So let's dig into it and see what it looks like. It's still warm to the touch. It's been wrapped in a towel in that cooler, and boy oh boy, would you look at that. That still looks delicious. The bark is perfect. The fat split beautifully, and you can see from how loose the string is that it shrunk quite a bit from its original size, which is to be expected. And this looks like it would be so good to eat right now. Let's get rid of the string and bust into it. And it's just coming apart in my hands, which is exactly what you want it to do. And that couldn't look better. It's juicy, good coloring. And you'll hear people mention the smoke ring That's this band of coloring that you get just under the bark or the outside crust that forms. And although it has nothing to do with the flavor, it sure does look nice. A nice pink smoke ring. And that's caused by a chemical reaction between the smoke and the in the air and other things that get released in the combustion process. But look at this, pulling apart beautifully. Get our bear claws here, and we're just going to rip this guy apart. It pulls apart wonderfully. That's what I am talking about. Yeah, that's it. You couldn't ask for a better shoulder butt. It's cooked perfectly. Tastes delicious. I really did enjoy the rub. Nice and sweet. And even though I am stuffed to the gills, I just can't resist. I'm going to have me some of this. That's good eating right there, folks. So I'll bag this up and freeze it. And it'll be great to have for sandwiches or just all by itself, really. The flavor's so good, you really don't need sauce. Although some people do like to put a little bit of sauce on it, which is fine, but please do not, I repeat, do not overpower the beautiful natural flavor of this meat and whatever rub you put on it. Use the sauce to augment the flavor, because as it is, it just tastes wonderful. And you don't need a sauce to moisten it up at all, because that is just a beautifully moist piece of meat right there. Tastes great. So this will keep feeding us for a while. And I promise you the last bite of this is going to taste just as good as the first. We didn't just eat the meal, we demolished the meal. We ate most of that macaroni and cheese. We started into that second cornbread, and we polished off the first of the 2 pork shoulders. So, which means we have a second one left, but I promise you that is not long for the world. We made that pig regret the day it was born. So it was all good eating. I couldn't have asked for anything to turn out better than it did. The rub on the meat was terrific. It was cooked perfectly. Part of it was overdone, I think, due to the cut that the butcher made in removing that shoulder blade, but that was a small price to pay. The rest of the meat came out fantastic. Couldn't have asked for anything more. So next up, I got a 14-pound brisket sitting in the freezer, and the Super Bowl is right around the corner. So I'll show you how to put together a really nice Super Bowl party meal for everybody. So join us then.